Shut up. What's up,
Yeah.
guys? What's going on? Welcome to the PTE show. I'm Ronan. We got John. We got a really good friend of mine, Jason, on here. This show is going to be a little bit special. He's a longtime friend of mine. We're going to go through some stories, some great memories, shake up life a little bit, talk about some ups, talk about some downs, the good, the bad, the awesome. We're going to talk about some trials and tribulations. Jason, a.k.a. Achilles.
Jason, welcome.
Big dog status. Happy to be here.
Big dog status. Hey, so I think I might know the answer to this. So I'd love to hear where did you get Achilles from?
So, trials and tribulations. So, once upon a time in a galaxy far, far away, it was 2006 in Wilmington, Delaware. And after a storied night filled with martinis, some Xanax, and some other prolific activities, me and the boys were headed back to these girls that we met, their house. So we headed back to hopefully clap some cheeks and have a good time. A little after party, and we were all piling into this Audi A6, but there was like 8 of us. We couldn't fit in this thing,
Damn.
and I was so relaxed from the Xannies that I thought it was a great idea to do a little Teen Wolf action and climb on the roof of the car.
Where were you when
And
we
I was
grew
like,
up? It sounded like you were one of our friends.
yeah, dude. So I was like, I'll just surf my way back. Like it's only 3 blocks,
Oh
right?
my god.
Surf my
Um,
way back.
I'll surf my way back. I was like, it's cool. I was like, just drive, 10, 15 miles an hour. I got this. And then we went like 2 lights up. I lost my balance and I ate shit and woke up in the hospital after brain surgery.
What?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I almost fucking died from that shit. So I fell off the roof. Yeah, I fell off
Ronan's
the roof.
like, did I just meet you?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't.
no, this is one of like 9 lives, right? So I fell off the roof of the car and my ankles hooked me into like the first thing that stopped my momentum was like my feet, right?
Mhm.
So my ankles got dragged a little bit, and then I essentially whiplashed my head into the concrete. Woke up in the hospital. Very fortunate to be alive after this, but I essentially couldn't walk or run for like a year, and so I got these big gnarly scars on the side of my right ankle. So essentially like an Achilles heel. So when I was going through the initial stages of my tattoo ventures, I was like, hey, this would be cool. Get this shit on my arm. So people are like, hey, yeah, like why do you have Achilles tattoo on your arm? And I'm like, oh, I got fucking Achilles heel from
Is that
car
the
surfing.
okay? Dude, shit, that's fucking wild, dude. I didn't
So,
Yeah,
even know that. Matter of fact, that was you said that was '06.
I was at 6. Yeah.
So I met you in 2010, right? At Matchbox.
Mhm.
That was a fucking wild time to be alive.
Yeah, it was. That was back when I was cooking.
That was yeah. Jason was fucking firing up them wood-fired pizzas like a boss. He was the only gringo in the whole kitchen.
Jesus Christ.
And my man doesn't even speak Spanish. Like he would just look
Yeah,
at me like,
ice. Yeah, dude, ice was coming
"No
for me. They're
comprende."
like, what's this guy do? They're like, show us your green card, bro. You're
So,
not one of
Yeah,
us. You're not one of these
Jason
people.
was like literally the green, like the orange hat with a green hat with an orange bill.
Yeah,
There's like Marcos and all these Tigres, and then you got Jason. But I'll tell you what, man, that was a dope restaurant to work for. In that time, it was just special, man. It was a special moment.
their pizza was delicious. That's what they were known for. And at the time, I was going through some pizza cooking. I learned under Pizzioli from Italy, opening up this Neapolitan pizza spot right across the street. Things didn't really work out there, so I just like walked across the street one day and filled out an application back when you still wrote those out.
Yeah, right.
And sat down, talked to a few peeps. Ronan was the bar manager at the time. He had some baddies behind the bar, so I was always trying to get in good with him because he knew what was up, and
yeah.
we would I would really only cross paths with Ronan when I would fuck up a pizza, which was a lot. We would make these big extravagant family meals. I mean, we had a staff of like at any given time that were working maybe like 50, 60, 70 people,
Yeah, dude, that shit was
some
huge.
crazy number. And we would do family meal and I would have to participate in making like, 20 pizzas. And you were supposed to take slices and Ronan Ronan would always come over and be like, yo, dog, You think me and the girls could get like our own pizza, maybe like 2 pizzas, like 3 pizzas, talk? You think you could slide us like 2 or 3 pizzas? Yeah, yeah, I got you. I got you. So,
That is in
yeah.
typical Ronan fashion,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
for sure.
But so yeah, that was in 2010. So here we are 15 years later on a podcast, which is crazy because why I thought this show would be so cool is that a year ago, you and I were trying to put a podcast together.
We were wrestling with the idea. I had been dabbling in stand up comedy,
Yeah.
and Ro and I thought that it would be, freaking lit to do a podcast together, but we just never really synced up.
Yeah. But
That'll
yeah,
work,
and
that's for
that's like
sure.
so you're like a real fucking jack of all trades, dude. Like the comedy, I remember when you got into that. Like I love that you've always been open to just fucking like me, dude. Like just trying whatever, dude. And if it sticks, it sticks. If it doesn't, tuck and roll, move on to the next. I remember you were having some like anxiety about like I remember when you first got into it about the stand up part, you were kind of nervous and stuff for obvious reasons. Not only are you standing up, but you're trying to be fucking funny too. I feel like we're naturally funny, but like John and I were talking, the minute you hit record, you're like,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole different beast. And thank you for the compliment. I consider myself a jack off of all trades as well.
Jack off.
And I do a lot of tuck and roll from time to time. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, no, stand up was an amazing experience. Not something I could ever see myself really doing professionally. I think I started way late. I feel like to be elite, you got to have 20, 30 years in the game, and you really have to treat it like your full-time job if you want to take it seriously. But it was an amazing experience, something I always wanted to try. I always heard from people, "Hey man, you're funny, you should do stand up." And then I actually crossed paths in early 2024 with a stand-up comedian who's sort of like a local legend. Turned out to be a fucking psychopath too. We don't really talk anymore. She she came into the restaurant one day. I was working front of house and I was up front, and she came in and she was like, "You're funny." And I was like, "I know, thank you." And
Thanks,
she was like, "You
Captain
ever thought?"
Obvious.
Yeah. "You ever thought about doing stand up?" And I'm like, "Of course, who doesn't think about doing that?" And she
Yeah,
was like, "Well, I do stand up." And I was like, "Well, shit." And then, I did a couple of sign-ups, and it's a completely different world. Like you guys were mentioning, it's you really gotta be okay with having your own balls in your throat.
yeah.
Oh
I
my
can
goodness.
imagine. I mean, I've thought about it too, and it's like I don't know. I feel like once it's like in a sport, like you need that first big hit to like get calm the
Yeah.
nerves, but like I don't know if I could do it, dude. That takes gorilla balls.
Big old heavy nuts.
So,
So
Jason,
go ahead.
really? Jesus Christ.
Go ahead.
Jason,
Yes, sir.
I don't have the same history as you and Ronan do. So I know like what you've told me over a phone call here and there. What was like this thing with comedy? Where did it start and why didn't it continue? What happened?
So it started with that interaction with this stand-up comedian. Like I said, she is a local legend around these parts. These parts being what's referred to as the Triangle in North Carolina, sort of like the coastal region. If my memory serves me correct, the Triangle is like coastal all the way out to Raleigh, Charlotte, and then back to Wilmington. It does like like the Jay-Z type thing,
Like the diamond.
like the diamond thing. Um, so she's kind of like a local legend in the Triangle, and she was also a paid comedian, which in stand up is a huge, huge thing because I don't know how many people are sort of stuck in the purgatory of just doing it for free. And speaking of which, that's also a big mitigating factor is that, you're essentially a starving artist for however long you're doing gigs until you do get paid. And when you do get paid, you're not making a lot of money. You really gotta love it. I figured I'd try it out. I did a sign up in Raleigh um, at this wild looking bar. There was a couple hundred people there, and I went to this dark room where there was like a stage, and it was a pretty cool setup. There was probably like 20 or so local comedians there, some traveling guys. She was one of the features, so she had a pocket five ready to go, which for comedy versions means, 5 minute, it's a 5 minute set, which is a sort of a big deal. If you can go longer than 30 seconds without, coughing up a lung or dying because your big old balls feel like two swollen cantaloupes stuck in your throat.
I can only imagine you're nervous as fuck going into it, right?
It's wild. Yeah, it's pretty wild. You really have to in my experience initially, one of the things that helped me was I'm a decent writer, and I just spent a lot of time on it, memorizing my jokes and going through it. I would practice in the mirror, I would practice in my car. It's pretty much all I did before these initial sets. My first set, I landed my routine, and I got some laughs from these other comedians, which is huge because we all hate each other,
Yeah.
right?
Sure.
When
You're fighting
you're
for one job.
yeah, essentially when you're funny to people that also think they're funny, the judgment is so high. I mean, it's worse than being judged by, people with pronouns.
That's
it's
true.
it's 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 steep judgment. But I noticed very early on that the time commitment was huge. I wasn't sure if I was going to have the time to commit to it because you're doing a lot of driving
You
and these
really are a
signups.
starving artist.
Yeah, these signups, you're there, you're committing your whole night to it, 5 or 6 hours. And there was the biggest point was the culture is very heavily immersed in drug and alcohol abuse. And
Yeah, I would imagine.
being, a sober comedian, if you will, that's not really my vibe.
Fun
So
hobby.
Yeah, I would have to be like at least 12 course lights deep to have the balls to get up there. And I mean, 5 minutes, dude. That's like a fucking eternity.
big. I wrote a pocket three and a pocket five, and it was one of those things when I did I did three sets in three different clubs, and on the third club, um, at the Dead Crow in Wilmington, I nailed my act, like knocked it out of the park perfectly. There was over 150 people present in the audience in the room, and I destroyed it. I
Hell yeah,
crushed.
that's
And
awesome.
I think after that I was like, okay, I'm good.
I retired.
Like I'm good. That's all the confirmation I need.
You went
I'm
out
out.
on top.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. So yes, when you worked at Matchbox, you were back of the house, like you said. We knew each other passing, but when you came on, when we worked together at Met, that's when we really clicked. Met was John. You remember what was that mall? What was that mall?
Pentagon City Mall,
No, the one in Potomac. The fuck was that
Montgomery
called?
Mall.
Montgomery Mall. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. That's it. Yep.
So Jason and I worked at this restaurant in Montgomery Mall, and it was like always dead.
Yeah.
What was it called?
It was called the Met, MET.
Why don't I know about this?
But it was like it, dude. It was probably the cushiest job I've ever had in all my life. Like I was making stupid bank, and I was working like banker hours. But it
In the
was
restaurant
usually
business.
yes, like it was weird. It was we had there was a chick named Susan who was the GM, and she was a whole nother podcast itself.
Oh Jesus.
But no, like Jason and I, like Jason worked double after double. Jason worked more than I did, and he was a server, a bartender, like a jack of all trades. So that's kind of like where we really kind of clicked.
Really quick, I this just hit me based on what you just said. Like you experienced one side of it, Jason experienced the other side. This question really was for Jason, but I'm going to ask both of you. I wrote this down earlier. Where is it? Hold on. When was the moment the stress of the industry got to you so much that you realized it wasn't worth it anymore?
Is that for me or him?
For both of you.
I can tell you, I can tell you one time that like I had like a what am I doing moment. So when we were at Met, that's when I had my daughter, my first kid, and there
Yeah.
was this dude that it was we had a chef, this dude named Andrew, and this dude was wild. Like when we were busy, like this, you know the saying like a chicken with his head cut off.
Yeah.
This dude was like just everything in life was just like everything, right? So I
Okay.
remember there was one night, it was like a Friday night. We were busy, I will say that, but I went into the bathroom and I'd like injured, oh, it was some of like I'd injured my back or something, and I was on steroids, and I went to the bathroom, and when I started to piss there was blood in my pee.
Oh, jeez.
And I was like, what the fuck is this? Right? Like, it just was like, I've never seen that in my life. And I come out of the bathroom and I'm like, I walk into the dining room and every seat is full. There's people everywhere. And I just like stop and he looks at me and he goes, what are you doing, dude? It looks like you just saw a ghost. And I was like, yo, I think I need to go to the hospital. I just pissed blood. And he looks at me, he goes, we're in the weeds. You can't go. And I was like, oh yeah, what am I thinking? And I walked behind the bar and I started making martinis. And then at the end of that shift, I'm
You
driving home.
stayed.
I fucking stay. Of course, restaurant
Jesus.
people are weird, dude. So
Oh
at the
my
end of that
God.
shift, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, what am I doing, bro? Like, I don't know what it is about the restaurant industry, but people feel like their jobs are so important that
Yeah.
they work sick, they work hurt, they work this and they do this and they break their back. I literally broke my back for a fucking restaurant. And I'll never be the same ever again because of it. But that was the moment where I was like, what the fuck am I doing? This is crazy. Like, I'm literally pissing blood. And Andrew's like, but we're in the weeds. And I'm like, oh, that's right. What was I thinking? Like, God forbid.
This guy, this guy was like 140 pounds.
Yeah, he was tiny, but he was like a little fucking honey badger, dude. He was
What
a
was he, the GM? Or
no,
no,
he
you
was the
said
chef.
kitchen chef
He
or
was the
something.
Yeah,
executive
he
chef.
was the chef, but
But he looked like fucking McLovin
oh, he was
from
such a jerk
Superbad.
off too. I
Oh
hope he
my
sees
God.
this.
What's up, motherfucker?
Yeah, but
And how about that was your moment,
that was probably the moment where I stopped taking it so fucking serious. Yeah.
Jason?
My big moment of sort of crossroads or dark night of the soul professionally, if you
When you
will.
went to go work at a country club?
So the country club is the saving grace. So the country club is by far the only reason why I'm still in food and beverage.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would definitely probably picking up a trade or in school learning how to do something else or hustling somehow, trying to figure it out. Because so when I got back in the industry post 2020. After the big shutdowns in Maryland were sort of over with, I started working for a sushi chain that was owned by Benihana, and they
That's
had a
what
store.
I was gonna ask you about. This was my next question.
Fuck. They had a store in Baltimore that had been around since like 2009. Very successful company called Raw Sushi, spelled R-A Sushi. And they were sort of chic, modern, late night sushi concept. So they would be open till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. A lot of nightlife vibes, very high end cocktail program paired with your Benihana fusion food, your Japanese fusion food with a lights out sushi program. I mean, we got sushi chefs. They had sushi chefs from you know, all the Asias working in these
Mm.
places. But no, it was one of those things where Benihana, I mean, who wouldn't jump at a chance to work for a company like that? I mean, on paper, a couple $100 million company, been around forever, despite all the bullshit their owners got themselves into. And it was in Baltimore, it was in the big city, so I jumped at it. Very quickly, I found out that this store was ass hat backwards. They were doing a lot of illegal shit that they knew that they needed to fix as far as their equipment was concerned, and they didn't want to spend the money uh, because the leadership was bonusing pretty heavily. So they didn't want to have to take the money out of their budget that they would otherwise bonus on to fix things like the hoods, uh, because they had a carbon monoxide leak. And me and like 12 of my homies were breathing that shit in for months. And when the hoods completely failed and there was absolutely no ventilation in the restaurant, we all got sick and ended up in Johnny Hopkins.
I
Oh,
remember that.
jeez.
And it became a deal. It became a big deal. A few of us got hurt. There was lawsuits, the whole thing. We just settled that a lawsuit probably about, I want to say, 6 or 7 months ago. So it just now ended, and that was back in like 2023.
I remember I was your legal representative.
We sued the shit out of these motherfuckers. I mean, they had if I'm not
Wait,
mistaken,
what?
yeah,
Yeah.
the
Ronan?
federal, we sued the shit out of these fools. Everybody got fired, and we all got money. So the federal limit for restaurants, just in case there's any restaurant people out there, and you think your equipment's sketch, just go get you a carbon monoxide detector. Don't tell your managers about it, and get you a little test done. The
Oh,
legal limit, the federal limit, is 40 parts per million, and this restaurant was at 287.
Jesus.
what?
Yeah, we were getting cooked.
And literally, and you guys had mentioned this to them, and they just kind of fucking brushed you off.
They blew us off until people kept getting sick. So basically, the long and short of it was their hood system. The hood system, the induction system, is a two-way ventilation system for people that aren't familiar with restaurants. It basically takes all that bad air from cooking and the byproducts of grill grease and all that smoke. Imagine thousands of burgers being cooked off on a grill, and all the smoke and stuff that creates. It's all bad for your lungs, and there's carbon monoxide in that stuff. And what the hood does is it sucks that bad air out, and
Mhm.
it forces clean air in, and it goes from the kitchen all the way up to the roof. And a repair for something like that is, six figures, and it takes a month, right? Unbeknownst to us, the only thing that was really working was the sucking of the bad air going out. There was no clean air being circulated back in.
Jesus.
Um, so when that part also went down and there was no circulation whatsoever, um, they didn't want to make the repair, right? They kept bullshitting and opening doors or trying to open windows or whatever. And they
That's
kept
some ghetto
delaying.
shit, dude.
It is Baltimore, baby. They kept delaying.
The last
They
thing
kept
I'd want to do is open a door in Baltimore.
Yeah,
Oh
thanks.
my
Or a
goodness.
window.
Oh,
Yeah.
They kept they
I
kept
wouldn't even.
delaying it, and then we all got sick. We ended up in John Hopkins, and this was like the fourth or fifth trip that we ended up taking that week, and it got so bad. This was over the course of like 5 days. It got so bad that I made a judgment call against. I didn't tell my management team that I was doing this. I was the AGM at the time. I didn't call anybody. I on camera, I took the chef outside and I said, we need to all walk into Johnny Hopkins right now, arm in arm on some kumbaya shit, and all get tested for carbon monoxide and see how bad this is. And that's what we did. And they looked at us and they said, either you guys are all fucking firefighters that smoke 2 cartons of cigarettes a day, or something's going on here. So they were pissed. They called OSHA. And the company, in response, flew their people out while we were all on medical leave because of this thing. So when I returned to work, basically the regional director of operations, the district manager, and the GM were all in the store. These are all the people that knew about it, that didn't want to spend the money on it. And it was this big cover up. And they knew it. And they were trying to, sort of band aid it. So they had techs in there trying to fix equipment, and they were trying to get the hoods worked on without still spending the money on it. And they were kind of grilling me, and what do you know about this, etc. And we had already lawyered up. I mean, it was pretty much over at that point. And once they found out that we had lawyered up, um, that's when it got weird.
Yeah, it usually does. It's crazy, man. It's amazing what people will do. Like, I don't know, man. The restaurant industry just. I mean, John worked in shit. John and I used to work at a place that had its own problems, and
I
yeah,
ended up managing that place for 2.5 years. I don't even know how I landed that gig, but I just did.
yeah.
That was crazy.
It's just such a fucking interesting industry, and
I did a
it's
lot of cocaine while working in it.
as most people did.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, and I know you had a really big health scare with that whole predicament with the restaurant. Yeah, dude, I remember when you called me, I was like, "What the fuck?" I was like instant like lawyer mode because the way that they treat their employees is unbelievable. Like, when I broke my back, do you think they fucking called to check on me? No, they just fucking hired a new guy and moved on, and it's like People who bust their ass for the restaurant industry is like they're literally nothing but a pawn.
I remember when I worked in it at its lowest level, being a server. That's because I ended up, becoming a general manager for 2.5 years of one store ever. But I remember always having the mentality, if I didn't make $1,000 in cash in a week, I was pissed. It wasn't worth it to me for all the effort you put into it, and break your back and smell like actual food, like embedded into your already showered skin. You still smelled like, you know, mozzarella sticks or whatever. Like, fuck
Yeah.
that.
Well, I remember when John and I worked together at a joint up in Frederick, and
Jesus.
I was a server, and John was a server and a bartender, and I had always wanted to bartend. So John and I we had a townhouse together up the street, and our house was like, dude, that was the house that we got it in, right?
That was the house.
And there was like there was like a Friday night where John didn't show up. John was a no call no show. He was all blazing blunts at the house, right? So I'm on the floor and they're like, "Dude, we need somebody to bartend." I was like, "I'll bartend." And that was how I got into bartending, was because my man fucking no call no show. And they would corner me. They're like, "Where's your boy at?" I'm like, "Oh man, no idea."
And we were young then, so I was like
Yeah, we were like
22, so you were like
it was like
20, right?
2021. Yeah, we
Yeah.
were young, dude. And we were just tearing up the streets. But yeah, dude, you've been around, man. You've been through a lot of stuff, man. And like where are you at now? You're in North Carolina, right?
Yeah, so I'm in Southport, North Carolina right now. Beautiful coastal little town. I've been in a lot of rom coms and other dumb shit that's on Netflix.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the club that I work at is on an island called Bald Head Island. So I get to take a little ship over there, back.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, 5 days a week. So I get on a ferry and I go over there. And then yeah, it's a sweet private club. There's some cool members there, some famous people that I get to cross paths with every now and again. The membership there is just absolutely dope. You got all these people from all walks of life
Hmm.
that are just happy to be there, happy to be playing golf, and happy to be eating delicious high end food.
Right.
You said something to me earlier today about the club itself. There's three restaurants on that one club by itself.
So basically, the way it's structured, yeah. So there's one fast casual concept that I would say probably has about anywhere from 250 to 300 seats. That is sort of like on the grounds, but across from the actual clubhouse, whose original design dates back to the 70s. And in the clubhouse, where I spend the majority of my time in, there's the your fine dining concepts where the water glasses are crystal and the wine list is exceptional. We got some $10,000 bottles of wine in our inventory, and that's the foo 3 hours spent on dinner restaurant concept. I spent a lot of time in that one, and then you have sort of on the other side of that clubhouse, you have the sort of gastro pub, a little bit more relaxed, kid friendly, less stuffy white tablecloth atmosphere where you can just go over there and grab a pint and get shitty and have a good time, watch the games.
So let me ask you about, like, I obviously, like we John was saying, like doing coke and stuff like that. Like the restaurant industry is obviously a lot of partying, right? There's a lot of drinking. There's a lot of there's it's like a cesspool of whatever, you know what I'm saying? And I feel at every restaurant I ever worked in, that was easily available. I was always a big drinker. I love drinking. That was my jam, dude. But I was not much of like a hard liquor drinker. I was more of like a beer drinker. So in my mind, I was like, oh, it's not bad. It's just beer, you know? But then, like, every night, like, it's bad. It was I feel like being in that industry, it was like you never looked at it as a problem because it was just like, oh, it's social. This is what we do, and this is like it's almost like a pay to play. Like it's like, oh, this is just what you do. And then 10 years goes by, and you have ulcers from banging Red Bull and vodkas, and you know what I'm saying. So,
Jesus.
what part? Where do you think like you started partying? Like at what point or what restaurant? Like where did you see like it started to kind of take off?
I would say it probably got it started to the signs of it getting away from me, because there's a functionality to that dysfunctionality.
Yeah.
The majority of people in the restaurant business, it's a stepping stone to something else besides the lifers, right? But even the lifers have a life outside of the work that restaurants require. And partying at some point takes a back seat to whatever they have going on outside of those four walls.
Mm.
But for me, that quickly became all there was. And I would say probably right around the time that you and I had linked up at Matchbox, probably about 2010, 2011, that's when it started to escalate to I had to go out every night. Yeah, I had to be getting fucked up. Like if I was not drinking after my shifts, the anxiety of it would become palpable. I had to have some sort of coping mechanism for how I felt about my place in life.
Yeah. No, I can
And
really.
then it quickly escalated into a whole other thing that I don't think anybody really could possibly conceive.
Yeah.
You said you got to a point where you were polishing off 5 handles a week.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean, was that while you were actively working in the restaurant business and doing that on your own time?
So fast forward about 10 years. So that was in 2020. That was the peak of what would became a full-blown late stage
Party.
alcohol
Yep,
addiction.
because we're at
Um,
2025 and you're 5 years into your recovery, right?
yep. Over 5 years, almost it'll be 2,000 days in sometime in December. Um,
Hell yeah, dude.
yes,
Congrats, man. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Amazing job.
Thank you. I mean, it escalated. It's such an insidious process too, because at the time I was still in pretty decent shape. I was still riding my bike everywhere. I was still active, but I was also very much hooked into that partying aspect of it. But I'm ugly on some days, but I'm pretty attractive on most. And I was still, getting girls and dating people and hanging out. There was still a lot of functional life left in my life. But eventually, uh, the party had more or less ended, and I was the only guy, proverbially standing in the room,
Jeez.
still getting it in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it became an insidious thing. I would say that when COVID hit, that was my excuse to just stay at home and get paid to drink. Because that's what everybody was doing. Everybody was getting paid to stay home.
That's
And
exactly what I did.
yeah. And I was like, sweet, I don't have to worry about being hungover at work. I don't have to worry about people looking at me weird because I always smell like vodka and Mike's Hard Lemonade. And at that point, I could easily polish off 2 fifths a night and without batting an eye.
So, based on your timeline, I can only imagine shortly after this story you're telling us, 2020, you were told something by a doctor.
Yeah. So she was hot too. It really helped that she
Jesus.
was hot. Uh, she's total smoke show, man. Dr. Christine. Ooh, if you're out there, I still love you, baby. I still love you. We're going
Uh,
strong. We're crushing it. Crushing it. Oh, 2 days, baby. I love you.
but I am right. It's in that timeline, right?
Yeah, so basically what happened was I graduated to a handle a night, more or less, and all I was doing was drinking. And I was in my kitchen one day making a ham sandwich, and my right knee just collapsed on me. And at the time, it's important to note that because of all the alcohol abuse and the lifestyle associated with that, the poor diet, etc., I had blown up to a nice 357 pounds. I'm about 230 now. I was pretty heavy. And uh, my knee had just gave out. Unbeknownst to me, my body was dying. I couldn't ingest food anymore. I had neuropathy in my legs and in my hands. I physically could not ingest food. The only thing my body would tolerate was alcohol. Whenever I tried to eat, it would get rejected.
Jesus.
And I was bloated from the pre-diabetes, the heart condition. I was in and out of the hospital probably every few months due to some sort of cardiac episode. I was on 5 different medications: blood pressure, anxiety, heart meds, you name it. I was taking it. I went to the doctor and I was like, "Hey, I don't know what's going on with my legs. I don't know why I can't walk."
Yeah. Something's happening.
And right, I was like, I told her specifically, I was like, I think I got an ACL, MCL injury. And she was like, really? And I was like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. And she was like, you don't strike me as very athletic.
Jeez.
And I was like, ACL, MCL, babe, you know? And she was like, she got really real with me. And she goes, Jay, we both know why you can't walk. And I was like, like defensive mechanism, like double
Yeah, yeah.
guns, like, haha. She goes, when do you turn? She goes, how old are you? I said, I'm 36. She goes, okay. She goes, you turn 37 soon, right? And I said, yeah, no, it's coming up in September. The day was July 9th, 2020. And I said, yeah, coming up in September. Got like a little over 2 months till my 37th birthday. And she goes, you're not going to make it. And I looked at her and I was like again, double guns, like,
Yeah.
haha, this is funny. And
Shit, dude.
in that moment, she began to cry, and she took my hand and she slapped it, and she goes, Jason, you are dying. You are gonna die before you turn 37. And I looked at her and I was just like, fuck, what do we do? Like, what do I do? She goes, you stop drinking. I was like, okay, done. But what do I do? Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, the looming question is, okay, so then what do I do? So I basically started from nothing, and here we are over 5 years later, and there's a lot of something to be proud of.
Yeah, dude, I just got goosebumps. It's I've been following you every step of the way, and Aaron and I have just fucking we've loved every possible, every post, everything that's come about your way, dude. You did it, man. Like you've gone from that to fucking Iron Man,
Yeah,
like
it's fucking
What
crazy.
was it, Jason? 53 miles you hit?
Yeah, 53.5 miles. So I would
That's
say,
incredible.
yeah,
yeah.
thanks. The Ironman 70.3 in Wilmington. It was my first official triathlon. I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. Signed up for that shit. I called my shot at like 285 pounds. And I just started getting back into the gym November last year. And I was like, I need something to strive for. And I've been notorious for overshooting my shot, aiming too high, and shot pretty high for this one. I'm glad I did because it was,
Your hoodie, is that from the event you just finished?
yeah,
Nice.
Hell yeah.
yeah,
No, I mean
yeah,
it's I love what you're saying. Like you kind of shoot too high, but like you did it though, man. Like you were accountable. Like as much as it would suck. I mean, there's videos. I remember when you said the bike's in the shop. You're in the shop. You had COVID. It's like if you
yeah,
got a bad knee, like a lot of people like myself, I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna do the Ironman, and then I might, for a week or so train for it, and then all of a sudden I'm like, nah, I ain't doing it. Watching you, from 2010 to go down, the road that I saw you at Met, and then to turn around and do that that's fucking amazing, man. It's like I said, this is a comeback story. Like I'm your number one fan. Aaron's your number one fan. We've always been in your corner. Like we love watching you because you're a good dude, man. Like at the end of the day, like you're a really good fucking person, and you've always been a good person. You've always been, you're one of those people like when you walk into a room and you are there, it's like okay, today's not gonna suck that bad. And like Jason's here, you know what I mean? Like it'll suck together, but like we'll have some
right.
jokes. We'll
There'll
have
be some levity in the suckiness.
exactly like but you've always been like a really good dude, and it's easy to be in your corner. It's easy to celebrate you because you're not an asshole, or you're just a good dude, man. And that's kind of the whole point of this podcast is like you're a comeback story. It's John and I are, when we grew up, we were, goofballs and class clowns, and we weren't ever supposed to amount to anything. So we were always like pegged to just fail. And the fact that we didn't, it makes it that much sweeter that we overcame what we were supposed to do. So watching you do that is awesome because I feel like you are kind of like what we are, it's a redemption story and it's awesome, dude.
I found something very interesting about you, Jason. You said to me that you didn't, during the whole entire process, reach out for like a or anything. You did this on your own, and you used like your work and your I guess your Iron Man challenges to get through all of this.
So essentially, there was initial thought process was I had to because I had this wasn't the first time somebody told me that I was killing myself with booze. This wasn't the first time that I had gotten in trouble for it. I had multiple DUIs and no license and no credit, and my credibility with my employer was in the toilet, and my life was just in complete shambles. The booze was the only thing I had left, and so there was a lot of work that needed to be done. And I think for the first time ever, what separated this from all the other times that I've tried to quit or sober up was I actually looked around in my life and took accountability for it.
And
Yeah.
you had a doctor tell you you wouldn't make it till you're 37.
And that's a good motivation too. Plus she was hot, right? So
Yeah.
you got that going,
So
you
you're
gotta do what the
telling
hot
me there's
lady
a
says.
chance?
Right.
Jesus
Right.
Christ.
It was, I still to this day try to make sense of it. But I think in that moment, seeing her so emotional over something that I wasn't emotional over got through to me in a way that nobody else really could. Because even Ronan tried to get me to quit because I was right after the shift. There was this, there was this movie theater that was right across the
Yeah,
corridor
that's
from the
right.
restaurant, and I would just go over there to the movie theater bar with a bunch of other freaking weirdos, and we would just get hammered. I mean, we would shut this movie theater bar down. There's these families bringing their kids in there to see like Lion King and shit, and we're tore up off of Boilermakers and Tully and Jameson. Um,
Oh my.
so uh, I think what's been the driving force in keeping me in this lane is the work. Doing the work. The work is the biggest motivation to maintain the discipline to the point where it becomes second nature. And plus, there in taking accountability for my life and how shitty it was and all the stuff that I needed to do to make it better, it quickly became bigger than me. I spent so much time in denial. I was worried about all these people and how they were going to judge me for admitting that I was an alcoholic. Right? It's like,
Mm,
well, I'm not going to be able to drink at weddings anymore. People are going to know.
yeah,
And it was like all the conversations I had with people, they're like, motherfucker, we've been waiting for this
yeah, yeah,
like about damn time you
yeah.
you snapped out of it, dude. Like congratulations. And with the accountability came the sense of purpose that's just been unparalleled spiritually, emotionally, mentally. It's I have this duty now, this obligation, because I've been spared. My life was spared. I shouldn't be here, and the fact that I am means that I have a job to do. I owe to my creator. I owe to the people that have supported me, the people that have loved me throughout this entire process, to keep going and make it the best possible fucking thing that I can come up with. And this is just one of this is just another part of that. Become an Iron Man. The goal to be the goal to complete the full Ironman next year, and just keep doing that. And
What
push
is
my
the
body.
what is the full Iron Man? What's the length?
It's so it's basically double what I did 2 weeks ago. It's it's insane. It's
Wow.
it's a
That's
yeah, it's
106 miles. 107.
it's 140.
God damn. I don't even
Yeah.
drive. Well, like, I haven't driven
It's
140 miles
So,
in like,
okay.
it's 140. Yeah. So it's it's full retard, man. You gotta
yeah,
have
I was
full on
say
retard
nuts.
strength. It's bananas. No, so it's a 2.3, 2.4 mile swim, something like that. And then you get on the bike, you bike over 100 miles. Like I think it's like 115, 116 miles, something like that. The math escapes me at the moment. And then you get off the bike, you run a full marathon.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So let me ask you something because so I've stopped drinking too, um, and it was almost I don't know it was like really easy for me. I also never like I would drink just like as a social thing, but then I started noticing when COVID happened. right? Same kind of story. What you're saying is like, all the stores are closed, you're trapped in the house, and it just felt like a vacation that wasn't going. There was no end to it. So it was like 18 pack here, 18 pack there, and then all of a sudden it was like, damn, dude, I'm crushing like a lot of 18 packs. And then it got to a point where like I was always fucking bloated, my skin always looked like shit, I was putting on weight, and I just always felt hungover. And then I remember this one saying I heard, and it said, "There's no buzz better than waking up not hungover." And that really resonated with me because
Say
it
that
was
again.
like,
Say that again.
there's
There's
no
no
buzz
buzz.
better than waking up not hungover.
So it's like the proverbial buzz of being high on life, not high
You're
on.
high of
Yeah.
not being hungover, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And like
Correct.
that hit
Okay, I
me
gotcha.
like a ton of bricks because at that point my daughter was like 7 and my son was like 4. And I'm also dealing with this back problem as well. And so it got to the point for me, I was like, fuck this, dude. Like it's not even worth it anymore. And then you weren't allowed to go out and drink. So it was like I was doing all this, because Aaron doesn't really drink at all. So I'm just sitting here just punishing 18 packs solo. And then it just, for me, it was kind of like a cold turkey. But I guess my question is, how do you see life, post drinking? Like for me personally, Aaron and I were talking about it this morning when we were talking about the show, and it was like I could probably count on one hand in the last 5 years that I've drank. Like we went to a Redskins game down here, and like I had a few beers, and it's like immediately because I do have neuropathy in both of my legs. The minute I have like 3 beers, my neuropathy's like I feel like I'm being electrocuted. So after 3 beers, you're in a point where it's annoying. But how do you feel, your relationships with friends and family are post COVID non-drinking?
So there's some caveats to that. I would say the first year the fight was on to get my health back. So that was mission, right? That was mission critical. It was just being able to walk again. COVID was ending, and I knew at some point the rubber was going to meet the road, and I just needed to get out there and start fucking working again, right? So I needed to quickly search my feelings and decide whether or not I was going to be strong enough year one of sobriety to go back into a restaurant and be around it, right? Like, am I strong enough to
Yeah.
get behind a bar and not get triggered by this shit?
That's like dangling
Yeah.
candy in front of a baby.
Oh yeah. It
That
was
takes a
it
lot of
was
fuck.
it was playing with fire, but again, there was so much when I had first sobered up. Yeah, I couldn't sleep for months, and the only thing I wanted was to be able to walk again. So I spent a lot of time up top just working through stuff, and I did a lot of reframing and deducing alcohol down to the poison that it is. So in my mind now, if you put booze in front of me, I look at it at this as the same level as a bottle of bleach. Like, if you expect me to drink that, my body will elicit the same visceral response as you being like, drink this bleach.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Sure.
I'll get sick
Yeah.
just thinking about it, because to me it's suicide. You know, I think the high of being sober, the pink cloud as they call it, that carried me through year one, year two, and then life. Just because your world is different doesn't mean the world has changed,
Yeah.
right? And all of a sudden, I'm firing off sober on all cylinders, and it's like, okay, here comes financial difficulty, what have you. Here comes dealing with death. I've lost 5 friends over the past 5 years, very oddly. All kinds of circumstances, some of them incredibly tragic. And it's like, okay, Jay, like, here's death. How are you going to deal with this, right?
Yeah.
I learned very quickly that some of the friendships that I had weren't really good friendships, but I had tolerated them and their level of toxicity because I was just fucking hammered all the time. So I didn't really know how bad they were for me.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then you deal with the macro stuff, all the crazy shit that's going on in the world. It's like, well, how do you respond to that? So I had to learn very quickly to adapt to the world around me sober, and I had to also realize that there is no love without hate. There is no good without bad. You have to be able to stomach the darkness if you want to shine in the light, and that's the way life is. And teaching myself to adapt to that, has always and continued to be the challenge, but it's something I thrive on. It's the more darkness I experience in my life, the more it opens up the bandwidth for the good stuff. So yeah, I guess I just learned to roll with the punches. And then it also helped that people kind of started responding to the journey because I put it all out there as a way to hold myself accountable. After year one, I posted it on the socials and I've been posting about it ever since. And as a way for, in my moments of weakness, to be able to look back at what I've built and be like, you really want to fuck this up, dude? Like, look what you got going, right?
Yeah.
And in a way, the biggest highlight of this whole process was people responding to me saying, because of your story, I've put the booze down. I've
Yeah.
put the drugs down. Like, thank you so much for telling me your story because now I have hope.
Yeah.
And that feeling is it's
That's
there's
amazing.
no words for that. Yeah, there's no words for that.
Magical. That's kind of, it's always easier to sit back and kind of watch something or someone than to actually be the one who's in the movement. And then the other thing is like, like I've had a lot of friends who've dealt with addiction and things like that. I mean, I would think that we've all been addicted to something or some kind of, thing in their lives. And the immediate first thing is, well, will they relapse? This and that. So I feel like, with me post drinking, like I always had a group of friends, a group of people. I always had something to do. And now I'm like, my circle is small. And I actually really like it that much. I like it better that way because, like you said, like I had a ton of friends, but like if we weren't drinking, like what are we doing?
It's
You
like,
know what I
what was
mean?
the
Like,
point? What was the point of hanging out?
I've hung out with since I haven't been drinking. It's like when I hang out with people now, I'm like, I'd rather be doing something that's productive, something that's going to make me smarter, something that's going to make me money, something that just overall creates more wealth to and value to my life. Then like I don't have time for bullshit anymore. You know what I mean? And like that's why I've got so political over the last few years. It's like when you have kids, things change. Like all of a
Right.
sudden it's not just about me, it's about my family and my kids and protection. And when you're around people who party like that, and like you said, it's like, okay, so I stopped partying. First of all, when you're drunk and you're with your friends who are drunk, they're all cutting up, everything's a joke. But then when you're sober and they're drunk, you're like, fuck this, I can't deal with this shit. It's like bartending sober and everyone at the bar is drunk. It's like, this is not fucking fun. Let me ask you this. Would you consider yourself having a relationship with somebody that helped you get through this? Like, I will say, I watched you from afar and I saw a lot of baseball. Like, I saw you're a big Orioles fan. So, did you have a relationship with anybody particular? There you go. So, how did baseball play a role in this?
So baseball was cool. So during the initial process, the only two people that I had, I would say maybe three people tops. Um, before I started branching out and making it known that I was in recovery, that I was active in recovery. You would find out later, but during that first year, the only people I had were my parents, my mom and my dad. It was in its infancy. It's like, again, learn how to walk. It's like, well, what the fuck do we do? And it's like, the doctor was like, are you going to go to AA? And I was like, fuck AA, I'm not going to that shit, right? And she was like, well, how are you going to figure this out? And I was like, I don't know, take it day by day. I can't walk to the liquor store, can't walk out of my house, so there's that helps. And I didn't have a car because I didn't have a license, right? And I was unemployed, so I didn't have money for Ubers. So the when you deduce it down to its most simplest terms, my options were very few. And initially, as long as I just didn't leave my fucking apartment, that was like my own little pseudo rehab. And
Mm-hmm.
and it was like, okay, Jay, try to crawl from your bed to your refrigerator and try to eat something in a day. It was just very simple things. And then eventually, because COVID ended when it was still a little cold out. My dad, I was over at my dad's one day, and he came downstairs from the attic with my baseball collection that I hadn't seen since I was about 13. And I was like, holy fuck, you still have this? And he's like, yeah. He was like, I've never given it to you because I knew you'd fucking sell it, you little drunk, you know? And I was like, oh shit, it's wild, you know? And so I started going through it. And then we started looking on eBay and looking online and seeing at the time during 2020, the card market was insane. Right. There
Mhm.
was cards being sold for millions and millions of dollars. So instantly that was connection between me and my dad is the same connection that we had when I was younger, which was baseball. And then we immediately gravitated gravitated towards baseball, played a major role, and I give it credit for helping save my life. You know, that was baseball provided me six to how long was the season? 6 months.
Yeah.
6 months. 6 months of consistency. It provided me 6 months of structure. As long as I had baseball, I had something to look forward to. There was always a game on, right?
Mhm.
There was always a pitcher whose cards I needed to start chasing and collecting because I knew they were valuable, right? So I think baseball was the first thing, like fuck AA, I had baseball. Baseball provided me the structure to sort of get me out of my head
Keep you
and
busy.
yeah, keep me busy and start living life again,
Yeah.
right? Outside of drinking and kind of rehabbing, right? And then football, my love for the Eagles.
Fuck you. Fuck you, Eagles.
Go Birds! Woo! Fly, baby, fly!
We invited an Eagles fan to the show, Ronan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's diehard too, but
Yeah, I'm
he's a good
nuts.
guy.
So that was winter, right? So for now I had for 12 months of the calendar year, I had something to do. And then, that evolves into, taking sport into my own hands. And it's important to note that one of the biggest motivating factors for getting into Ironman wasn't doing Ironman initially. It was
Something to do.
it was getting off fucking pharmaceuticals. So I was still throughout this process, I was still taking medications. I was still taking stuff for my thyroid. I was still taking heart medications and taking all these prescriptions. And during the initial few years when I really needed them, they played a very important role in my recovery. But it got to the point where I was like, do I really still need to be on these things?
Yeah.
Right?
So you're off all of those medications for your heart.
Zero.
That's fucking awesome, dude.
Jesus Christ, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
see, I'm trying to work on
Zero.
that with my back. I'm still on all kinds of stuff, and it's
Your situation's different, man. I mean,
yeah,
you're scarred up back there like you've been out to sea for like
dude.
20
I look like
years.
fucking little ninjas have attacked me, like little
You look like
midgets.
Ninja Turtles.
Dude, when I go to the beach, you hear people like, "Oh my god, he's stabbed up in the front, the back, and the sides."
How many operations have you had, Ronan?
Dude, I've had two just this year. I've
Yeah.
had since 2018. I've probably had 9 surgeries, eight,
Yeah.
9 surgeries.
My hat's
So,
off to you, man. That's
so
that's your own Iron Man.
It was funny you were mentioning your health with that shift that you were pissing blood.
yeah,
I remember that because when that happened, for some reason, like a day or two after that, we were talking and you were like, yo, I was at my shift and I pissed blood, but I didn't know that was your aha moment.
yeah,
When you said it, I was like, I know this story.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's and that's my goal is to like get off the medications because there's the side effects, and one thing that I don't, I've never like thrown out there, but when you're taking pain meds, right, like opioids and shit like that, I've never taken something to get a high from. I'm a bitch when it comes to pain. Like I don't handle. I'm sure Aaron will tell you. I get the man cold and it's the fucking worst thing in the world. But when you have all these surgeries and you're constantly in pain and you're constantly like you're going through these pockets of, you're taking oxycodone for 2 or 3 months or whatever. I remember there was a night that I was going to bed and I was off. It was like my first night coming off of the oxy. And there was a feeling that I'd never felt before. And the only thing I can explain it was I felt dirty. And it was like my chest right here. Because when you're taking pain meds or you're drinking or whatever it is, you're just functioning with it, right? Like you're not thinking like, oh, I have a problem or there's this or what it's doing to my body. You just think, oh, I'm in pain. I take this to make it go away. But once your body becomes used to taking it, like I was detoxing. Like my body was like jonesing. It was like, where the fuck is like, where's the goods, dude? Like, what's
Where's my
happening?
shit? Shit.
I'll never forget it because I was laying. I almost like wanted to like peel my skin back. It all was like in my chest and my shoulders, and like I had to like wiggle my legs. Like it was this really fucking terrible feeling. And then like that's that was my. I never had a moment where I needed to have a drink. I was never like I'm gonna die if I don't have a drink. But there were moments with the pain meds where I was like, oh my God, like, or like you would see that you were running out and you're like, oh my God, this is going to suck. Like, so I did have a moment down that road, which I never would have seen I don't like medication. I don't like pills and stuff like that. So that was a pretty dark road when you're going through that. But to get back on subject, so there was one thing that I asked John. I said, did he tell you about this story? Can you tell me the story about the watch?
Oh yeah, the watch. Holy shit. Yeah, I have it. I have it upstairs. Yeah, so my dad, so it was back in I think like 2010, 2011, and I was dating Ariel, and we were on our way up to New Jersey for my cousin's wedding, and it was, I forget which birthday it was, but it was like 20 something. Uh Either 29th or 30th. It was a big birthday, and um dad had given me a Tag Heuer Formula One limited edition watch. It was my first, proverbial big boy watch, right? And your dad gives you a watch like that. It's a big deal. It's a special moment because of the evolution with the booze, and my employment was never really stable. Things didn't work out in Matchbox. I was only there for a hot minute, and
Mm-hmm.
it was on to the next. It was always on to the next. Things were never stable with girlfriends, with relationships,
Yeah.
with anything really. And I was always, financially destitute. I always needed money. I found myself in a situation where I had no booze, no money. And it was right around the holidays. My dad and I had gotten to an argument a few weeks before that. And I was just like, well, fuck him. I pawned the watch half drunk at a jeweler in Silver Spring, and I remember him saying, "You sure you want to do this?" A fraction of what it was worth. It
Mm.
was a fraction of what it was worth. A couple $100 at most. So I had hawked this thing and tried to hide it from my dad. And a couple years went by. He keeps asking me about it, and I keep making up bullshit because I'm still drinking, and I'm a piece of shit. So when I did finally fess up to him that I had sold it, the hurt that he had in his eyes was unbearable. And when I sobered up, I had made it a mission that I'm gonna find this fucking watch. Like
Mm.
I grew up on Indiana Jones, and again, the one of the biggest things that's one of the things that I go off of is the idea, the belief that anything's possible. If I could walk away from booze when I loved it that much to the point where I was drinking six handles a week, anything's possible. Anything,
Mm.
right? I can
Yeah.
do any mentally. I can do anything.
Yeah.
So I was just like, well, fuck it. Like, if I can get sober, if I can fall in love with baseball, if I can rebuild friendships with my friends and get back to my family, I can find this fucking watch. How hard it's gonna be? It was hard. It took like 2 years, but
It's like a needle in a haystack.
I spoiled the story. But so I kept looking for it. Right, on used watch websites, different secondhand retailers. I searched for it locally, no dice. I looked for it on eBay, no dice. I thought I'd found it a few times and ended up buying what I thought was the watch, and it turned out not to be the same watch. And there was this 2 years into this thing. I had been sober for a little over 2 years, going on 3 years, and I was still searching for the watch. And I wasn't really telling my dad that I was doing this. It was going to be a lifelong journey if it needed to be.
Yeah.
Um, and then it was one of those weird things where lightning kind of strikes my brain. You just get this thought that pops to your head out of nowhere. And I'm telling you, it's either aliens or God. I don't know which one yet, but I had remembered that I still had the paperwork from the watch when he gave it to me. It was the only thing that I had left. I didn't have the box. I didn't have anything. I knew, but I had the manual
That
and
serial
everything
number.
that had the serial number. So I dug it out, right? Eureka moment. And I start scouring the internet, but this time using the serial number. And I found the watch in Japan.
I told you this motherfucker's gonna be wild.
So I find it on eBay, right? And I'm like, holy shit, that's the fucking watch. And I knew it was mine because when I was drunk one night, I had run the bezel of it into a brick wall, hammered, and I had scratched the C and the H on tachometer, right? It was a very specific
Shit.
bezel. So it's the same scratch, same bezel, same serial number. And I was like, holy fuck, this is the watch. And I was like, but it's in fucking Japan. Like, how am I gonna but I wanted proof, right? I wanted to know that it really was the watch, right? So I needed to get somebody on the phone. So I called fucking Japan, right? And
That's
this
crazy, dude.
motherfucker gets on the phone and he's like, you buy watch.
You buy now.
You
Hurry up
buy
and
a
buy it.
watch. You call for a watch. You buy a watch. And I was like, I'm gonna buy the watch, dude, but I gotta know a few things
Need a
first,
proof of
right?
life.
Jesus
Right.
Christ.
And he's like, so I start telling him the story the best way I can with the language barrier. And I'll never forget this. He goes, you scratch watch. He goes, this is your watch. And I said, yeah, it's my watch, dude. Like, can I buy it? Let me buy it from you. So he gave me a really good deal on it. And, I bought it, and it got shipped over from Japan. And when I showed my dad that I got it back, it was a moment. It was
I
a moment.
bet. That's fucking.
Absolutely.
I remember when you were going through that. I remember when we talked, and it was like this. Like those are the kind of stories that, like I told John, I was like, he didn't tell you about the watch, did he? I'm okay, cool. We'll save it for the show. But that was one of those. That was one of those moments that I could. I mean, I could only imagine.
That now it's clicking. Earlier today, you said that. You
Yeah.
asked me that, right?
I asked you. I said, did he tell you about the watch?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
and I said to Ronan, I was like, no, don't say anything. I like
Yeah,
those kinds
yeah.
of surprises. Like I knew it was something special. So
Yeah. So
Should I go get it? I know we're recording right now, but should I go get it?
Jason is like Jason's like when we first opened, he said it was one of my 9 lives, and like Jason's a movie. Like just in the 15 years I know him, like my man has been through so much, but like he fucking keeps swinging, dude. Like where so many things have happened that would knock people down and they would keep them down, this fucking guy just keeps getting right back up, dude. And like that's why it's been so fun to watch. I don't know if I'd use the word fun, but that's why it's been so amazing watching your stories, because at this point, like, is there anything that can keep you down? Like most people would have quit. Most people would have gave up, but you just find a way to bob and weave, like, and it's really admire that, because I'm trying to bob and weave right now in my life, with my injuries. And I'm at peace now that I'm going to be, you know hurt the rest of my life. I'm not going to be better. I just hope that I don't get worse, and I'm at the point in my life like, okay, I need to just come to peace with this and move on. But like, you've gone through, unlucky events. You're the type of something happens and I'm like, wait, what? What do you mean? You fucking, you know, but you've definitely,
Like going to jail in Delaware? Does John know about that one?
no.
About
no.
so part of the process of redemption was getting my license back. That was like another sort of watch thing. I had because at that point I hadn't driven in years, and tons of, I'll talk about it. It's all on case search anyway. You can look it up, but tons of tons of Deweys. Probably 2 Deweys in Maryland, a couple in Delaware, and like one in Rhode Island. Right, over a 15-year period. I was just always that guy who would get caught, and so my license was gone. It was permanently revoked in Delaware, permanently revoked in Maryland, and I had warrants in Delaware and Rhode Island when I finally sobered up. And I was like, somebody's got to take care of this. So that was one of the things I attacked with ferocity, right? And I did good on Maryland. I had a complete. It took 18 months, but it started when I walked into the DMV because I had realized that if you're going to live in America and be sober, you kind of need a driver's license. This
Sure.
isn't one of those. This
Yeah.
isn't one of those countries that you can just get away with not having a whip and not having a driver's license.
Or
I mean,
get
it's
like
it's
free
vital.
buses and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's fucking vital.
It's not New
Like
York.
if I was gonna live any sort of life post alcoholism, I knew I needed to get this shit together. So I walked into the DMV and I was like, "Hey, do I have one of these?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, no, you have a license." And I was like, "Yes." And they were like, "But it's revoked." And I was like, "No." And they were like, "And there's 26 points on it." And I was like, "Oh, that's
Damn.
a lot. That's a lot, right?" So it took 18 months to get all that stuff squared away. I basically had to convince of the state of Maryland that I was sober. So one of the conditions,
Rehabilitated.
yeah. So I had to get all these doctors to basically put their medical licenses on pieces of paper saying, yeah, this guy's good to go. He won't drink again. And when I finally did get reinstated and get my license back in Maryland, the executive director of the MVA personally wrote me a letter, congratulating me.
Wow.
And that was a moment. That was a moment. But it took it took a lot of fucking work. It took 18 months.
It's a long
But
time
then
without a license. That's crazy.
oh yeah, and so but one of the parts of that process was getting Rhode Island and Delaware squared away because post 9/11, the department, the Department of Transportation that's associated with the federal government. So DMVs are managed at the state level, but and before 9/11 there was no federal oversight over how each state handled their licenses. And you could get back in the day, you could get multiple licenses in multiple states. So if you got hemmed up in Virginia and you're like, well, fuck it, I'm going to move to California. You could just go get your license in California.
Yeah.
And nobody would be any the wiser. But after the Real ID Act, after the Patriot Act, and all these things were signed into law by Bush and crunching down on uh, people and credentials, right? Wrong people having the wrong credentials. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It got to the point where they constructed a database where the states could talk to each other. So now Virginia can talk to California. So if you go to California and you get a speeding ticket, you don't pay that. You get a warrant in California.
You know what that's
Virginia,
called in America, right?
FAFA.
MVR.
What's that mean?
Motor vehicle record. It's the shared database
Yes.
between all of the
Yes.
states. I learned
Yes.
the hard way with that one.
Yeah. So if you end up in Cali now, Virginia will suspend your license.
Yeah.
So until you take care
Shit.
of what California, yeah. So until you take care of what California needs you to
Yeah,
do.
I
So
got
now there's
arrested because of that.
yeah.
The state
So
of Pennsylvania suspended my license because of a child support issue, and
yep.
I maintained that's when I lived on Dockside, Ronan, and they arrested me for getting pulled over. I get pulled over. They're like, "You have a suspended license." I'm like, "No, I don't." And they're like, "Well, you do in Pennsylvania, and it carries over into Maryland."
Damn.
Yeah,
So
same thing.
yeah, Maryland was like, dude, you got this stuff in Delaware, Rhode Island, you need to handle that. And
So
I'm
you
like,
got
oh
locked up
shit.
in Delaware for that?
So the Delaware thing was a Dewey that I had not shown up to court for since like 2008, right? So I had these warrants.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, they were like a million years old. So I called Delaware and I'm like, hey, do I still have these warrants? And they were like, yeah, dude. And I was like, oh shit.
Shit. Forgot about those.
So I'm like, how do we take care of this? And they're like, you got to come to court. And I was like, okay. So, but like, am I going to go to jail? And they're like, we don't know. They were like, probably, maybe not. And I was like, okay, well, here's,
Probably,
and I was
probably.
like, well,
Please come.
here's right. So I was like, well, here's what I got going on. And, I send them all the legal shit that I just knocked out in Maryland, right? Being like, this is my life. It's on the up and up. You don't need to necessarily throw somebody like me in jail. It's not gonna do me any favors,
Mm.
right? So after some communication from afar, they're like, you should be good, dude. Just pull up and we'll get you on the docket.
Just pull
And
up.
yeah, just pull up. So we'll
Fucking
get you
great.
on the docket, right? And then you'll be able to go home that night and you'll be fine, right? So I lawyer up and I show up and I'm like, so they arrest me. They bring me to they bring me into court. At this point, the state doesn't want to pursue any prosecution. It was so old, and the fact that I had been reinstated in Maryland with a conditional license that um, that stipulated if I blew anything over .000, I would be permanently revoked.
Shit.
Yeah, so that's the
Wow.
condition. That's the condition that Maryland gave me my license back on. So with that in court being known, the judge is sitting there looking at me, and she's listening to all this stuff, and she's just not fucking. She's not vibing with me at all. And she goes, "You had warrants for 14 years." And I was like, "Yes, ma'am. Yes, I did." And she was like, "Where'd you go?" And I was like, "Maryland." She was like, "What were you doing in Maryland?" And I was like, "Drinking, I guess."
LIVIN.
Right, drinking, and that got a little rise out of the audience. I wasn't trying to be funny, I was just being honest. And she put me in a level 5 supermax facility for 39 hours.
Damn.
Yeah, so I was in G pop with some real criminals
Damn, that had.
For 30.
for 39
I
hours.
wouldn't
Yeah,
make it for 39 minutes. I ain't built for that shit.
You remember
it
the
was
day
wild, man.
the day you bailed me out of jail?
Yeah. I feel like
You bailed John out of jail?
7 locks.
I feel like, knock on wood, I've always dodged the law. I feel like I'm the guy that helps people get out of trouble.
Yeah.
But I've had my fair share of stuff. But well, let me ask you this. I have a couple like quick questions. Do you have a favorite like a mantra or like a quote that helps you get through your tough days?
It's
Or
yeah, I would say I would say my biggest go-to on tough days is keep going. Just no matter what, just keep going. And that goes back in 2020 when I first locked into this thing, taking it minute by minute, hour by hour, and day by day, to the point where, it's never going to become second nature. But, I stopped counting days after, 1800 days, 1900 days. You kind of just stop counting days, because there's other things that you're focused on. I would say my biggest go-to mantra is keep fucking going. Don't be a pussy.
Hell yeah.
just keep going. People. If I failed, if I allowed myself to fail at this, all is lost. My life is over.
and let me ask you this: if you were to describe, life now versus life then, how would you describe that?
It's almost like I gotta pinch myself because I don't know who the fuck this guy is. This guy talking to you. It's so I am so far removed from who that person was. The person that emerged is somebody that was always in there. Like I'm still the same guy.
Hmm.
I evolve, I grow just like everybody else does. This person was buried under a heap of shit, and now you know, he's the beast has emerged. I'm a different guy. Getting back to the point of getting off the pharmaceuticals, I really wanted to know who I was without any drugs in my body. I wanted to know who I was with no outside influence. You got to do this. You got to take that. You have this condition. You're not allowed to get off thyroid meds. And I would always push the envelope, right? And be like,
I like that.
and and be like, well, who the fuck says I can't? Right? You got amputees doing Ironmans. I think I can probably weasel my way off of medication, right? Everything has been a stepping stone to the next thing.
That's
What's one thing you gained from all of this, or what's one thing you've gained from your sobriety that you never thought you'd have again?
I would say number one is love.
Is love.
And it's absolutely. It sounds corny. It sounds gay. Learning this is, doing Ironman and getting myself back in shape and running, 5 miles a day. Those are all acts of love. I mean, there's no, love for myself, love for my body, love for the fact that I have a second chance to do all these things because there's people out there that can't do this stuff. Ronan's got fucking back shit going on. He can't. I'm not saying he can't ever, but he's gonna have if he Ronan wants to become an Iron Man, he's gonna have a tougher
yeah,
road than
yeah.
I've ever had. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So it's like it's just love for all the bullshit that life brings to the table. The good, the bad, the ugly, the scary. Just love for the fact that I'm here for it with open eyes.
It's nice to have like that second chance of life. I mean, it's interesting. It's a story that we all, some of us can relate in different ways. But it's and let me ask you this: what's a song? So with when you're running, you're on the bike, and you have that day that you just fucking not digging it. What's a song? And don't say the fucking Rocky joint. What's a song that gets you through like that last mile? That like dig down deep mile.
A wet ass pussy.
Oh,
Some whap whap
jeez.
whap
I'm kidding. No, that's not it.
whap whap whap
Wop,
whap.
wop, wop, wop. No, no, it's not wop. I dabble. I'd say surprisingly enough, I listen to you when I'm really in it. I'll turn on some like Hans Zimmer, some classic shit, like some movie scores. Um,
Braveheart soundtrack. That's my jam, dude.
yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Be
Yeah,
like,
dude.
um, because visualization. Because some of these workouts are 5-6 hours long. They're fucking. I mean, you're putting your body through hell, but you're also doing something for 5-6 hours. It's not necessarily boring, but it's very mentally challenging. Practicing visualization, so like I'll visualize myself being Braveheart on a horse, getting all the princesses and the bad bitches in Ireland in the hills. I'll visualize, myself on horseback riding into war, or sometimes I'll envision myself at Woodstock '99, right, with Corn on stage,
Yeah.
right. I'll be rocking to that. So a lot of classical, or just you know, just some Deftones. A
I
lot
love
of
me some
Deftones.
Deftones.
Deftones has gotten me through many workouts
That's my shit.
where I wanted to be a little bitch, and some of the heavy stuff. There's that French heavy metal band um that played at the Olympics. Go Jazeera, something like that. They're nuts.
And
They're
let me ask
nuts.
you
They're
the
awesome.
last thing I want to ask you because
Gojira.
I'm sure this could relate to anybody, but like, what advice would you give somebody who's secretly struggling?
It's that's tough. Nobody's gonna make you do it. You really gotta want it, and you gotta be prepared to go all in, and that's the only way you're going to change it. And I would say the biggest piece of advice to somebody who's secretly struggling is that it's not a secret. Everybody knows, motherfucker. The only person you're fooling is yourself. So the sooner that you just rip off that band-aid and you just get after it, the better. And all it takes is a little bit of movement in the other direction. To me, it's physics, right? So one of the visualization techniques that I used when I first walked away from 6 handles a week, which is no small feat, is if you're in one place that's unhealthy for you and you start going this way, just in little steps, before you know it, this is now way the fuck over here.
Yeah,
And it's the sooner that you make that movement, the impossible movement in the other direction, and just keep pushing that fucking envelope, man.
every
Two
day,
You know,
times, two times,
every
every
day.
every
two
day,
times.
Hash,
every day, it's like it's the more you will start to replace everything in between with everything that moving in that direction is built. And it's if I can do it, if my dumb ass can do it, anybody can do it. I'm not exceptional. I'm in no way special. I'm human just like everybody else. I struggled. It took, 32, 33 times of trying to get sober before this time worked. And I have a firm belief that anybody can do it. It's in all of us. You put your mind on something, you can really do it. But you got to do it. That's the part.
yeah. Well, I'm glad you did it, man. It's not you're the type of person that you want around. You make the world a better place. So I'm
Yeah.
thankful to be a part of this journey with you. Anytime I can help, I try, and just sometimes just being there to listen. And I know E loves you to death. She's always in your corner, and it's I'm glad you did everything you did, and I'm sure I'll hear tomorrow you're doing something else that's fucking crazy. But it's good, and it makes sense to keep yourself busy. But John, what do you have? Is what you got?
Man, no, you're definitely an inspiration. I told you about my daughter, Jason, and I almost wish she had the strength you had, because maybe, I wouldn't be experiencing that. And you said a lot of the journey has been occupying your time and finding things to do. This would take up this amount of time, but it took up this amount of time. And for me, like, the podcasting didn't come because I lost my daughter. It came because Ronan just happened to ask me again. He was like, "You want to do it?" I was like, "Well, yeah, why not?" Now, it just seemed like the right time for me. Well, in hindsight, it has become the best therapy for me. It's my AA. It's
Right.
my escape from, like, you can't compare death to habitual addiction. I think habitual addiction is worse because it sticks around, where death
Okay.
just comes and goes. It's inevitable. Nobody's exempt from it. So I think your challenge is a lot harder because you have those moments where, do I turn left? Do I turn right? It's always a question. It's always walking the fence. Anything could tip the scales. So I applaud you, sir. I mean, I think you have done a wonderful job. I'm still shocked when you told me the other day that you did this without therapy, but like, now the picture's a lot clearer. I mean, you had a mission and you did it. So I enjoyed this so much tonight. Unless you had anything else, Ronan?
No, and I mean, I just thought it was ironic that, I'm sitting here on this middle screen and there's Jason on the left and John on the right. And, they always say good minds think alike. Like, at some point, when a podcast came up with either Jason or John, and here the three of us are on this podcast, and life has a crazy way of intertwining. The universe works in crazy ways, and I wouldn't be surprised if we had you on more shows. Because you bring a lot to the table, much more than just your addiction or the things that we're going through. And like John said, I applaud you, man. Like, and I'm always here. He's always here. If you ever need anything, I'm a phone call away.
Yeah. And I think you're a great human being, and I just met you, but you have my phone number, and I would love to, if you ever felt like there was a moment in your life where you were down and you wanted somebody to talk to that really has no skin in the game, you can always call me, and I'm there for, period, anybody in my life that I associate with, whether on this level or this level. If they reach out and say, "I just need someone to talk to," I will always, always, always be there for them. And I think you have a message to deliver, Jason, that your story should be the story. Like, it should, in my opinion, be shared with a lot of people, because not too many people. We said this, I think, on our 4th episode, Ronan, something about addiction. A lot of people dying from addiction because they were too scared to admit the addiction.
Yeah.
So that's a very scary thing. And I think that your, dedication to wanting to be better is the type of thing that some other people need. A lot of people feel like they have to turn to therapy to get the answers they need.
Right.
And that's not necessarily the case. You're living proof of that. You just were so committed and strong in your head, and you were like, "I'm going to beat this fucking thing." And you did it.
Yeah. Well, I think to piggyback off of that, you bring up a valid point and something that I failed to mention earlier. That was the biggest challenge, was the fear, right? It was, well, the fear of, what do I do? It was the fear of, I don't know how to do this. It's proverbially, it's getting off a ship that's on fire and sinking, and you have no choice to get in the lifeboat. But now you're in the lifeboat and you're in the middle of the fucking ocean. It's like,
And it's sad because people run away from things that they don't know. And
right,
that's when that clock, sometimes runs out on people.
right,
I know my daughter, for example, tried to go through therapy, but her addiction became so bad. She went through a point of having it almost at the worst point other than dying, where within 20 hours of delivering her daughter, through childbirth, she was pulling IVs out, running to go get a fix.
yeah,
So, it's crazy. And you had a hot doctor who opened your
That's,
eyes,
sometimes it just takes
yeah,
a
man.
hottie.
you know?
That's how it is. Yeah. No, full circle moment with her. So she transferred. She was still my primary care physician my first a year and a half of sobriety, and then I had got transferred to somebody else, and I didn't see her for a while, and I didn't know if I would ever see her again, and because there's no need to. I was in Maryland cardiology talking about the game plan with these medications, et cetera, and whether or not some of these issues. I started dabbling with the thought of maybe I can manage this on my own with just some healthy living and proper eating, maybe a little exercise. I was toying with the idea that I wouldn't commit to for another 2 years. But like Ronan said earlier, the universe has a way of putting people together for a reason.
Amen.
I had stepped out of the cardiologist's office, and down the corridor, there she is walking, my super fucking hot doctor from a couple of years ago. She's walking down the corridor right at me, and I saw her, and I was like, I know that bad bitch anywhere, right?
Oh
So I
my
was,
God.
I was like, hey, Christine, and she kind of gives me that like stranger danger, weird guy vibe,
Yeah, yeah,
She's
yeah.
kind of looking at me like, who the fuck is this motherfucker? She can't really place me. And then as she got closer to me, she placed me and she was like, "Oh my God." And then I immediately she went to ask me, and I immediately knew what she was gonna ask me. And I told her what day it was. And it was like, day 1,300 something or whatever. And she cupped her hands over her mouth, and then, we both got very emotional.
Oh
It's
yeah.
it was a full circle
It's crazy,
moment.
man. Universe, how it works. It's
It's
insane.
it's it's astounding.
And just think, how many days was that in?
Like
How many?
1,300 something.
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember the
1300?
exact name.
Just think, 1300 days before that, you couldn't even take death seriously and you were laughing all the way up until the point she started crying. That's like the full circle. That is, you're right. I mean, that's incredible right there.
Oh
Jeez,
yeah.
man.
Well, I applaud you, dude. And like you said, keep on keeping on, dude.
Gotta keep going,
Keep the
dude.
pedal to the metal. And it probably didn't, it probably helped you that the Orioles and your fucking birds were pretty good at those time periods that you needed them.
You
If
know,
you,
it's
if you're a Redskins fan, it might not have went that well.
it was odd at the time. So year one, the Orioles lost 100 games that year, and it was the team was rebuilding just like I was.
Hmm.
Dad and I would go to these games. We would go to 7, 8 games a year, and there'd be nobody there.
I was gonna
And
say there was always like you had like 7 rows to yourself. It was
yeah, yeah. And every year that I stayed sober, I got better, and so did the Orioles. And it was this journey. It's just been absolutely incredible. The amount of life I've been able to experience that I've been blessed with over the last 5 years. It's been uncanny, and it's my duty, it's my obligation to share it, because there's if it helps one dad be present for his family, if it helps one daughter save herself, if it helps one single person take that step in the other direction, then that's life. That's worth lived. I've earned my second chance.
play for
Yes, you
keeps.
have. Absolutely.
Awesome, dude. John, you want to take it away?
Yeah, I was actually gonna switch this one up a little bit. Ronan, this is your buddy. I was honored to be a part of it, but you know him better
Yeah.
than I do, and I think that this is suiting
Okay.
to do both of these tonight. So,
Okay.
Jason,
So
thank you. You
yeah,
were amazing.
yeah, dude, and
Thanks, Dad.
I knew when we were doing this podcast, when we talked about interviewing people, I knew that you had to be on the show because you know, uh, I know you might not know this, but there are people out there who are becoming more powerful in their journey because of your journey. So I know you probably might not see that because you have the tunnel vision of your journey, but there's people like me out there who, it might look like fucking leprechauns and rainbows from the outside, but on the inside, my world isn't as perfect as everybody may think, So when I watch your journey, it inspires me to also hold myself accountable for things and be stronger with certain things. So I appreciate the openness that you've been throughout your journey because it's opened the door for a lot of other people like myself to realize that I'm not perfect, and that's okay. you know, and all I have to do is take one day at a time, take every curveball, you know, like I've seen you've been thrown so many curveballs and you keep swinging, dude. And, you know, it reminds me that don't give up, you know, keep going. And then you always come out on top, dude. So it's, you know, we applaud that. And I thank you so much for being so open on the show. And I appreciate you taking, you know, 2 hours of your night to open up like that. And, you know, like I said, I hope we, you know, get you on the show again. Yeah, dude, I knew this one would be a little bit deeper than our typical show, but I knew it would be real, and we definitely pushed the envelope.
Push that shit.
So thanks a lot, man, for coming out with us and spending it on our show. And the PT show is something that we want to touch people, not physically, but might catch a charge. But we want to, you know, we want to. This reaches out to a lot of people who are dealing with addiction or anything that they can't control, and seeing that there's people out there, you know, like John said, this is very therapeutic, you know, but there's people out there who don't know what to do, they don't know where to start, you know, and stories like yours, you know, lets them know. So
Yeah.
thank you very much. Coming from the PTE South, I'm in the PTE South Tampa.
And PTE North.
John's up in PTE Democrat land, and you know we're just down here in the red lands with old Ronnie DeSantis, my man. But
Don't
yeah,
forget
dude,
to check us out.
yeah, check us out.
PTE YouTube and at the PTE Show on TikTok. And now all of our episodes are being found on Pushing the Envelope Spotify.
And Spotify, yeah. So you catch us on the Spotty, on the Tiki, on the Spotty, on the U, the Tubi. But yeah, man. So I thank you very much. We'll see you soon.
Peace.